Like, it take a real motherfucker to get sober.
Entrepreneurship is a mindset. It's not necessarily what you do. Because I promise you, if you're doing it for the right reasons, you will be okay.
What do we know about trauma scientifically? It changes the chemistry in the brain.
We can relate to one another, you know. That's why this camaraderie is so awesome, because we just get it and we don't judge.
You can't fight new battles with old tactics. Your thoughts become your words become your actions become your character becomes your destiny.
What do you want to be remembered by when you're gone? What's Grounded, fam? It's your boy Johnny Gio. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Grounded Phoenix podcast. As always, the purpose of this channel is to express vulnerability and expand awareness to addiction, trauma, and mental health. Joining me today is my guest, Adrian, host of the Addictive Podcast. What's Grounded, bro?
Hey, man. So good to be on here, man. It's awesome.
Dude, I was a guest at your podcast, and I remember listening to that podcast, and I was like, holy crap, is this me speaking? Like, is this really me? Not only was the audio A1, because the way you edited and everything, I was just like, man, just reflecting on everything that I was saying, I was like, man, this can't be the same person, you know, because I listen to myself and I do podcasts all the time, but just hearing it on another platform and somebody asking me questions, it's just
Dude,
different.
we got real so quick as well, like right off the gate. I remember we were talking like childhood trauma right away. We were talking all this stuff. You were just, it was awesome. It was a great episode.
Bro, 0 to 100 real quick. I wasted no time.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the females used to tell me when I used to have premature ejaculation. You just 0 to 100 real quick.
Either so you're fast or you're first or you're last, baby.
Hey, but I take care of my partners. But I take care of my partners.
There you go.
But hey, man, you know, I know that you wanted to get on this podcast, and you know, you do want to respect your anonymity. So when we talk about, you know, addiction, we're not going to go into details on like your drug of choice or what the addiction was per se, but we're going to try to keep it more recovery based. And you know, when we talk about like the addiction aspect, you know, let's just be kind of broad about it to respect your anonymity.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that are just like, you know, fuck my anonymity, I don't give a fuck. And I think that's cool, and I think that's helped a lot of people. But I also do believe that similar to people like you, there's others that would prefer to keep their anonymity sacred, but at the same time share some sort of experiences so that people that do respect their anonymity, or they just want to stay, you know, like not as open, to provide them a platform as well to express themselves and vent, and hopefully, you know, they share something that, you know, may reach somebody to help them out in the future.
That's exactly it, man. I think I want to be a therapist, so I'm still applying to schools, and I have family and friends that listen to it. So because of that, I am somewhat limited in what I can share, but just to keep things professional, I guess. But that being said, like you nailed it. I want to have positive impact. I want people to get to know me and to really know the recovery side, like the practical things that helped me, because like my life is forever changed, and I went through that stuff, and that's why I'm passionate about addiction recovery.
Right on, dude. And I appreciate you being on the show, man. So before we get started on, you know, like the addiction aspect and what life used to be like for you, I just want to touch on the psychology aspect of, you know, schooling and like what you're learning right now, and what really got you into, you know, wanting to become a therapist. You know, I know for me, I think I like talking to people and I like trying to help, but I know even sometimes I'm hesitant as to being a addiction counselor, just because I can get too invested in people, and I could easily drain myself. How do you think you would take that on, and what really intrigued you into, you know, going that route?
I'll tell you, the number one reason that I went this route is because of sponsoring guys. So sponsoring guys in 12-step programs, that was my first experience really being present with somebody who's going through addiction, and trying to walk alongside somebody and be that person that they can be vulnerable with and go through the steps with. And it was so fulfilling to be there for somebody and to see somebody's life transformed. I just knew, like, I think I was maybe a few months into sponsoring a guy, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a therapist. I can't just do this on weekends. Like, I want to do this every single day. It just gives me so much energy and gives me so much purpose in life. So, as for how I handle the, I guess, burden or the energy of it, like you said, I think that I haven't actually ever been a therapist, so I don't know what it's like. But as far as sponsoring goes, I just keep that boundary and keep that divide of, I can't get this person sober, basically. I can't heal them. I can't transform them. All I can do is show them what I did and show them some simple actions to take. And then they have the tools and they have the keys in their hand of whether or not they can go through that, right? And so when they don't go through it, which happens all the time, people just quit. People leave and they suffer and don't get better. And it's hard, but I can separate myself from that and just say that, hey, they weren't ready for it, and I'm still doing what I'm doing.
Right on, dude. When it comes to the psychology aspect of like learning it, when you're in school, like what intrigues you the most about it? Is it like human behavior? Is it like I don't know, some people are into like, why do people commit murder or like, you know, shit like that. Like, is it the psychology aspect behind it? Like, do you want to know what people are thinking type of shit, you know? Because I personally like psychology, and I think the way the mind works is you know, it plays a big role in our lives because as I've said before, like what we think really determines like what we create in our exterior, like, and then, you know, what we think is, you know, brings out what we talk, what we say, and then what we say creates our actions, and then from there, you know, it just becomes your reality.
100%. I think that the human mind is the most interesting thing in the universe. It's just so crazy complex and so powerful. Like, we can create these worlds for ourselves in our mind, and they can either be like a hell or a heaven depending on what our mind is like. And it's just, I love psychology. That's my undergrad at uni, so I'm big into psychology and reading different books about it. And I think it was also just my own experience with addiction that got me interested in it, right? Just trying to understand myself, trying to understand how to get better. So that was what planted the seed.
Right on. You know, before we talk about that process of getting better, you know, what was it like before you were well? You know, before, you know, you started a podcast and before you were helping people, you know, what was life like?
Yeah, it was miserable. I think that I guess I could start off by just talking about even before I found any recovery or any type of steps or things like that. It was basically depression and anxiety and suicidal ideation. Like that was what brought me to admitting that I had a problem. It was thinking that I was alone, thinking that I was cut off from people because my behavior, I was such a selfish person. I started to cut off my family. I started to cut off friends, and I isolated. Like, I went on this trip. I went to Southeast Asia when I was 18 to like discover myself, you know, to have this like spiritual journey. And there was nothing spiritual about it. It was hell. It was absolute hell. And I had this psychotic episode, and I just lost touch with reality while I was there. And that was my life before recovery. It was just insanity.
Wow, man, that's weird. Because, I mean, you were 18, you said?
Yeah.
Dude, that's such a young age. I mean, I'm so codependent, dude. Like, I can't be alone at that age, especially in my own active addiction. Like, I wanted to be surrounded by people. So, like, when you say you just wanted to be alone and you wanted to have your own spiritual experience, was it really your intention to have like a spiritual experience? Were you like consciously like aware of that, or was it subconscious? And what does spirituality mean to you back then, and what does it mean to you now? Like, is there a difference?
I think the big difference as far as spirituality goes is that back then when I was 18, it was very selfish. It was very all oriented about me. Like, what do I need? What do I want in life? And how can I be happy without all these other people that screwed me over, right? Like, that was kind of my whole outlook on it. And I used meditation and some Buddhist ideas to kind of excuse my behavior. Like, you know, non-attachment. I'm over here, I'm peaceful, I'm doing my thing. But it was super selfish, and it was very dishonest. And now my spirituality is all about connection, right? And being of service, and what can I do for you, and what can I do to be part of this family, part of this community. It's completely different look on it.
It's almost like the complete opposite, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. Now, I'm a little different than you, bro. I actually think that being selfish, I guess because I used to come from a not so selfish place, even in my active addiction, I kind of just wanted to people please, you know, and just wanted to be that guy that everybody liked. Now, for me, I think being selfish is like more like a self-care type of thing, and not worrying too much about other people, because I could very easily spread myself really thin because I want to connect with people too much. So I think it's important for people to understand where you are in that aspect. Like, are you a people pleaser? Are you codependent? Or are you really isolating all the time? And kind of just try to find that mid ground. We were talking earlier about like the psychology aspect and being a therapist, and then how to deal with situations and not overcommit. And I think a part of that is like the addiction in us, and just being all or nothing in one thing. What are some ways that you cope with that now? Like when you're being I was gonna say spiritualness, but like now, do you ever find yourself being selfish again? And like, is there a battle within yourself? Like, oh no, I can't be selfish, even though sometimes it's healthy. Like for you, at least, it would be like the right choice to be selfish at that moment. Because I think some people may struggle with that.
Yeah, I want to rephrase, because you made such a good point, right? The self-care and spending time with yourself, like that's good. That's a really good thing. And I think like if I just call that self-care, like, yeah, I think there has to be a balance between caring for other people and caring for yourself. And so I still try and find that balance. I do this thing, it's kind of weird, but I literally take myself on a date sometimes. Which is like, I plan it, man. Like I literally, like Thursday night, I'm taking myself on a date, and I don't know, I eat good food, and I read a book that I like, and I journal, you know, and that's self-care. Like that's spending some time just with me and seeing how I'm doing. Because yeah, I sponsor people. I have a girlfriend. I have friends. I do a lot for other people. So that's just something I do to try and find that balance. But it's completely different from when I was 18, where it wasn't self-care. It was selfish. Like it was like, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like, there's nothing wrong with Buddhism. There's nothing wrong with meditation, but I would use it in a way to excuse really bad behavior and to isolate.
Can you give me an example of like how you use like Buddhism like as toxic positivity?
Yeah, it would be I would use Buddhism, the idea of non-attachment, right? I would just cut off people in my life, like even my dad for a while. I wouldn't talk to my dad. And I would use the idea of non-attachment as a justification of like, hey, I'm not attached. I'm free, you know? I'm peaceful. I'm not going to talk to this guy. Like, that's fucked up. It's messed up.
It's fucked up, but I don't know. I just feel like shit. Like that may have been like true. You know, what is there a sense of like, can that be true though? Like, you know, but then again, it depends what level of extremes you go to. Like, I mean, you can detach and just be like, hey, you know, I'm just setting some boundaries here. Or you could just say,
and some situations,
juices.
Right? Like
cut
some
off from my life.
situations, you do need those boundaries. Like some fathers do need to be distanced from, and I think it's just so case by case, right? I think it's really, I can't make like a blanket statement for everybody to say this is what you should do, but all I can say is that in my situation, what was going on with my family and my people in my life, I was definitely I now take responsibility for things, and I take responsibility for the fact that I was just cutting people off.
Right on. So accountability. I gotta ask this question, bro. What was the most expensive date you took yourself on?
Oh man, I'm a cheapskate. I think it was like $30.
Oh snap! Hey, you know what? It's all good, man. I mean, you're saving some money, you know. So, hey, honestly, that's how I am now. That's how I am now. So I'm not gonna lie about that.
I take my girlfriend on the more expensive dates for sure.
Oh, you know, smart man, smart man. What are some tools, you know, moving forward to like the recovery aspect, you know, what are some tools that have really helped you with your journey, I guess, to find a balance with connecting with people and then just dealing with addiction within itself, you know, like, because I think we can be addicted to many things, you know. It can be sex, it can be love, it can be substances like coffee even, although some are stronger, you know, our body depends on them more, but like in your life, what is like a tool that has really helped you deal with like the addictive traits, and when did you realize like, shit, I'm an addict, not just to this, but I'm an addict to everything?
Yeah, it's a really good question because it took me a while. It wasn't just one moment. So first I came into 12-step program after I came back from that trip I was telling you about. I came back from Southeast Asia, just like weighed 120 pounds, depressed out of my mind, like really sick. And I went to 12-step. And I went for maybe 4 months, but I couldn't admit I was an addict. Even though 12 steps helped me a lot and I actually started to recover and started to get better, I couldn't really admit to myself that I was powerless over my addiction. So I went back out. I was like, screw you guys. I mean, thanks for helping out, but I don't belong here, right? I can handle this thing. And 6 or 7 months later, I started to realize I couldn't handle it, and it got way worse. And I came back to recovery kind of unwillingly, but again, I was depressed and I needed help. And once I came back to recovery the second time, it was this long, painful process of starting to admit I was an addict and starting to really work the steps like my life depended on it. But it took me a while. I was relapsing all the time, and I was so sick and tired of everything there, and it was a painful process. I would say about like a good 8 or 9 months the second time around of being in recovery.
Wow. Do you believe that people really do gotta reach a point of, you know, just feeling empty and just like reaching a rock bottom in order for them to get to that point, like, hey, I want to accept help, or I'm realizing now that like I need help and I am an addict? Because I know it was hard for you to accept that.
Yeah, it's such a good question. It's something that I still think about because I think everyone has to hit a bottom. It just looks different for everybody. Like for me, I never went to prison. I never overdosed to the point of almost dying, right? So I didn't hit some of these rock bottoms that I see a lot of people hit, but my rock bottom was basically being in the 12 steps for 9 months and repeatedly relapsing and repeatedly messing up and just getting so sick and tired of that situation. That was basically my rock bottom. It was 9 months of just of agony of coming in and out and in and out and just being like, enough of this. Like I got to get better already. Like I got to figure this out. And it was through working the steps that I really figured it out.
I think somebody, I forgot who said it, but someone said it well, like, you know, everybody reaches bottoms in their own way, but it's not more of an external bottom. It's more like of a spiritual bottom, you know?
Yeah.
What it is to them. I know for me, that look in the mirror, you know, and then when I saw myself and then I reflected, you know, not having a dad myself and then being a father, you know, it wasn't me almost losing my damn arm. It wasn't me going to jail. It wasn't me hurting a bunch of people all the time. It wasn't even the hangovers. It was just that incident, that moment for me that was just like, holy shit, like this is it.
And realizing that you were going to be that type of dad, right? Like, and wanting to be a good dad. Like that is so powerful, man. That's such a powerful experience. And I think even though I didn't have a kid, it was like, I wanted to be a good person, and I was realizing that I wasn't, you know, that was it.
That's crazy, dude. You know, sometimes I wonder what I would do without my kids. And I really got to give you props because to want that for yourself, because initially it started because of my kids, you know, like I don't know if I would have been able to do that for myself, because at that point I didn't really like who I was. So where did you find the strength to want to do it for yourself? Did you talk to anybody? Were you reading any type of books that really said, hey, like I actually love myself, I don't want to commit suicide, like I love who I am and I want to protect this person, this soul, the spirit that I am?
Hated myself, man. None of that. I hated myself. And I think what my first motivation was my little sisters. So thinking about what it would do to them if I actually took that action against myself, if I actually crossed that line, thinking of what it would do to my little sisters was such a powerful wake-up call for me. It really, it kind of shocked me into remembering that I wasn't alone in this world. You know, there's people out there. There's people that care about me, and there's people that would be really affected, like for the rest of their lives, if I did something like that. So that's where it kind of started. And then it wasn't until I would say like step 9, when I started to make amends and I started to make things right in my life, that's when I started to love myself. And that's when I started to be like, oh, wow, like I'm actually a good person deep down. It's just that I had all this shit blocking me in my past. That it took me a while to get there. So at first it was just the motivation of my little sisters.
Wow, that's powerful, dude. I mean, what would you say to somebody that, you know, because there's a lot of people that don't have kids, don't have little sisters, don't have somebody to initially motivate them or inspire them to be better for. What would you suggest, or have you had any sponsees that are in that situation and you've seen them overcome, you know, this struggle of addiction?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think there is, even if it's imaginary, there's always going to be some person that's going to be affected. So for somebody that doesn't have kids, it might be their future kids, right? It might be the imagination of their future kids. Or for somebody who doesn't have any living family, it might be the imagination of their deceased family, right? Who's still somewhere out there, might care for them or might be affected. Or the imagination, if they were still alive, what would they think? How would they react? So when you can have that powerful imagination, when you can put yourself in those places, I think everybody has somebody that could be affected or might be a source of motivation. Wow.
That was a great freaking answer, dude. That was an amazing answer, because I was even trying to answer the question myself.
It's a good question.
I was like, how, let's say I ever have a sponsor, or like I ever come across this, like how can I go about having somebody feel that way, or, you know, like be inspired or motivated to get better because they feel so poorly about the person that they've become. So that was a great answer. I absolutely love it. I'm definitely going to be using it for future purposes, just so you know.
Go for it, man.
And I like talking to you on this show, because you can see right away that you're a host yourself. Because I asked something, that's a great question.
I'm like, damn, I'm taking notes for my podcast, man. I'm like, oh, this is great.
Oh,
great line of questioning.
I mean, this is what it's all about, dude. Just helping each other out and connecting, right? Like you said, connecting. What are the, which leads me to this question. Like, what is the, you know, the gifts that you've gotten so far? Like, I guess like the most out of connecting with people.
Wow. Yeah. I think the number one thing, it's something you mentioned before. It's like loving yourself, right? Because I had to learn that in a really slow, painful way. And it was the people that I connected with in recovery, my sponsor, the first few friends that I made, they started to teach me how to love myself. They started to teach me how to take care of myself and value who I was. And that's such a good gift, man. So many gifts can come from that gift. Like now I have the gift of having a loving partner. I can only have that because I first learned to love myself, right? Mm-hmm. And I have the gift of this podcast that I do and this sense of purpose and helping each other or helping other people. And I can only do that because I have that value in myself and I start to love myself. So So many gifts, man. Like the promises, the step 9 promises. It's cliche to say them, but like I feel it. I'm feeling those things.
Right on, bro.
A new freedom, a new happiness, you know?
That's incredible, man. I can see it in your face. Dude. You're just happy, joyous, and free. I can see that.
Dude, loving life right now. Yeah.
So you mentioned, you were, in your active addiction, you mentioned, meditation. Do you meditate now? And like, is there a difference? It's kind of going back to the first question about spirituality, but what does meditation mean to you? Does it still play a role in your life, and is there a difference now?
Yeah, I still, man, I'm so inconsistent, but I'm trying to get back into meditating more consistently. It's just
same.
It's just lazy habits, I wake up, forget about it, but yeah, I meditated this morning, and I'm trying to be more consistent, even just like minimum 5 minutes. I think meditation is so good with clearing your mind and being able to be present, having like a pause between something happening and then how you actually react to that and how you respond. It's so good. So I still love to recommend meditation to people. And I think the difference now is that I meditate for a different purpose, I guess. I meditate now for the purpose of being more present so that I can be more of service and so I can be more of a useful person, as opposed to meditating how I used to, which was so that I could not need anybody and sort of be on my own, right? So that it's a different motivation.
Right on, man. That's very well said. How was the transition like from, Buddhism, the beliefs of that, and then meditating to the 12 steps? Because I know some people that, claim we're spiritual and we kind of know it all, we're good. We're kind of closed-minded to like 12 steps or another form of recovery or healing. How was that transition like, especially, to those that may think that they got everything all figured out? I like to remain teachable. I like trying new things, and if it doesn't work, then that's cool. It might work for somebody else, but I like to remain teachable. I just want to know what the transition was like for you.
Yeah, the transition sucked.
I know you mentioned that.
Let me tell you, man, it sucked. Because I grew up Catholic, so I had this background with Christianity, and then I left it. I was atheist in my teen years, and I found Buddhism as sort of a secular Buddhism as my spirituality, and then coming back to the 12 steps felt a lot like Christianity, like the higher power sounded a lot like God. And it was hard for me to get over the idea that I knew it already. Like I had this arrogance that I've read the Bible, I know this already. I went to church all the time. Like, don't give me this bullshit. Like I know it all. And so I had to start to let go of that. And like you said, being teachable, right? It's so important, having that open mind. So it took a while. It took a while to make that transition and then actually work the steps with the belief that it could help me. I had to be open-minded and just say, like, hey, this helped these guys. It might help me, and I'm just going to go for it.
Do you remember that moment where it was like, everything just clicked? You're like, you know what? I don't know it all.
Yeah, I think, there's a bunch of experiences. The one time that it definitely stood out to me was I had just made a step 4, or I guess step 5. I had shared my inventories with my sponsor, and I had opened up about all these things and gone through my life, and it was going into it, I thought it was just like confession. Like when I was Catholic, I would go confess things to a priest, right? I was like, I've done this before. Right. This is easy. But it was so different, and my sponsor responded to me basically saying like, oh, yeah, me too. Like, I did that. Yeah, okay. And the acceptance of that experience and then the accountability of actually owning my part in those things, I actually felt free, and I actually felt completely changed from that experience. And it was so different from any experience I had ever had with confession or with anything with Christianity that I knew, like, whoa, I don't know this. Like, this is something new. This is something way different.
Right on, bro. And I think a lot of people do have, because I know for me at first, I was like, this, what kind of cult is this? Like I've gone
Yeah.
I've gone to AA meetings prior, because they were court ordered, and I was like, man, fuck all this shit. So like when I started my recovery journey, I was like, I don't belong in AA. I don't belong in any of that shit because I'm different. And once I started getting some time and started realizing and started just taking the things that really resonated, at the end of the day, what I have found for myself at least is that in order to heal, in order to get better, for me at least, it's an internal job. It's going really deep within, and not just keeping it to myself, which I was doing, which I was journaling, but more so connecting with people that have experienced that. Like you said, they were like, oh yeah, like me too. Yeah, I've been there. The priest is not going to tell you that.
No.
The priest is not. So just feeling like, oh shit, like I'm not the only twisted motherfucker here. Like, cool.
Exactly.
Hey man, look, man, I've had a great time talking to you, and like I said, like I could tell you're a freaking host on a podcast. Like you did great. But before I let you go, you already know I gotta give you this signature question. That I believe there's 3 things in life that are guaranteed, and they're marked in our gravestone. That is our birthday, the day we pass, and the dash in the middle that represents the life we led. What do you want to be remembered by, when you're gone?
Yeah, first off, before answering, I just want to thank you, man. You're an amazing host, and it's been so cool sharing my story on here. It was pretty last minute, but I really appreciate you inviting me on and just being a good host, asking the good questions, right? It makes it easy for me. So I really appreciate you. And what I want to be remembered for, I think, is I want to be remembered for destigmatizing addiction and really working to help people understand all the different types of addictions, whether it's in themselves or whether it's in the people they care about, and then helping people to really transform and really break free from those addictions and discover a different type of life, a different type of presence and happiness.
I'll never be the same.